So how do you learn to work in an organization? Well, first thing I would suggest to you is you've got to look at that organization through multiple lenses. If you just look at it through one lens, if you're just looking at it, for example, through what we call the human relations lens, primarily 4 frames, but a lot of times we look at, those of us in social service organizations look at things through the human relations perspective. Look at, the feelings of people, the relationships, their needs, those kinds of pieces. But sometimes we have to look at, well, how does the whole organization function? When you talk about victim services, you're not talking just about victims, are you? You're not talking about social services or crisis lines or hospitals or sexual assault examiners. There are police sometimes involved. There's courts and judges involved. There's other social service providers. There's correctional facilities. All those people are part of this problem, are they not? So sometimes we have to look at the big picture. So I would encourage you to look at your organization through a variety of frames. Look at the structure of it. How's it put together? Who talks to who? Where are the connections? Where are the disconnects? What's the political frame? Earlier today, while you were all sitting in another session or doing something else, I'm wandering around your student union building, and I wandered into a room and I saw a whole bunch of displays about, gay, lesbian, transgender rights. And you have a whole wall dedicated to that. Okay? Wow, what a powerful thing that we've actually dedicated a room and put those pieces up there on the wall. But where is that in this state? And I don't mean to challenge your political views on those things, but you have to think about it. I mean, we've been trying to pass in Pocatello gay rights legislation to say that you can't be discriminated because of your sexual orientation for a number of years. And it got close this year, but it didn't get through. So as a leader, you have to understand what's the political frame of my environment. Is this a fight worth fighting? How many ever heard the adage, choose your hill to die on? I want to challenge your thinking on that. Don't choose a hill to die on. Choose a hill to kill on. And I say that this way. Say, why fight a fight you can't win? Find another way. If it's worth drawing your sword, it's worth winning, not dying, not losing. So pick your fights, pick your battles. Use the political frame and figure out, okay, can I win this battle or do I have to find another way? Can I draw my sword and go charging at City Hall or the Capitol steps, or do I need to find another way to do this? Examine through the political frame. The symbolic frame is all those sort of things that have meaning. It's the symbols. I mean, I'm looking at the pictures on the walls here. I'm looking at the way you dress. All those things send a message to me. The way I'm dressed sends a message to you, does it not? Sure it does. We talked about that a little bit ago. Communication is really, really important. But we communicate only about 20% verbally. Most of our information comes to us how? Through nonverbals, or what we sometimes call paraverbals. Those are things like volume, or cadence, or enunciation, or where the accent is. What we consider to be important in the words that we share. So all those other pieces that, the tone, we like to use the word tone, that really communicates a lot of our particular message. So to be an effective leader, you want to start looking at your organization through these multiple lenses. And not just one. Now, all of us have a preferred lens. We all do. And I'm just going to take a wild guess that most of us, because we're in social service sort of settings, we're social workers, we're law enforcement, whatever that might be, we tend to be human relations oriented. You might be politically oriented, but most of us tend to be in that human relations frame. Because that's why we're in this field, because we like working with people. We like interacting with other folks. But as a leader, you've got to say, okay, that's where my predominant focus is. What am I missing? What else do I need to look at? Again, look at things through multiple perspectives, but keep it simple, students. You remember the KISS philosophy, right? We talked a little bit about this. Sometimes we oversimplify problems because we like to blame people for our problems, or we like to blame bureaucracy. Well, we can't fix this because it's the way things are. It's the red tape. It's the political powers that be. Or sometimes we say, that's not my area of concern, or that's not your area of concern, or you're working outside of your pay grade. When we think in these terms, we start to get a false sense of what the problem is. And that leads to false assumptions and false conclusions. What you need to do then is say, wait a minute. Are these symptoms of the problem, or are these the problem? And most often when you're blaming people or bureaucracy or somebody's territory, their defined turf, you're really dealing with a symptom. You want to get to the problem. Most organizations are overmanaged and underled. And that's why I'm spending most of this time today talking about leadership. Because We said if you can't manage, you can't stay, but managers are a dime a dozen. What do managers do? The routine, the obvious. It's easy to learn how to manage. It's not hard to learn how to make a schedule or make a budget or to assign people. What's hard is making the right decision to guide us in the direction we want to go, to achieve the future that we want to have. That's hard. We don't have enough good leaders. There's a lot of leaders out there, but there aren't a lot of good leaders. Our goal is to develop good leaders who see things from a variety of perspectives and are able to bring those people together and help them understand one another. So the next question is, how are we going to do that? What are the challenges? Well, first of all, we need leaders. As I said, we're under-led and overmatched. We need leaders who see things differently, who don't see them the same way everybody else sees them. We're involved right now in the most rapid period of change in the history of mankind. It's hard. How many of you ever read any of Alvin Toffler's work? I love Toffler. Toffler wrote a book called The Third Wave, and what I like about it is it sort of puts in perspective the change that we're going through. When we started out, as far back in recorded history as we can go, we started out as a people, as nomads. We were wanderers, weren't we? I mean, we just sort of followed the herds, and wherever the herd of bison or herd of antelope or whatever we were hunting was, we followed them. And we figured out after time that certain berries ripened in certain regions at certain points in time, and we'd go there. So we just wandered along. And we packed our houses on our backs or on our horses if we were able to domesticate livestock at some point in time. And we were nomads. And we were literally nomads for tens of thousands of years. I mean, go back 50,000 years and we were wandering. And we still have some wanderers today, don't we? We still have some people that just sort of throw everything in their minivan or their little bus and off they go and they camp out in the desert. And my generation called them hippies. I'm not sure what they're called in your generation, but you know, they're wanderers. But when you think about the social services that supported that group of people, did they have formal schools? No. They sat around the campfire and they told stories, and that's how children learn, isn't it? And they drew on cave walls to leave messages for other people that would come along. They didn't have hospitals. They had a medicine man or a shaman or a witch doctor or someone that provided the medical care of some kind. They didn't have a president or leader, but they had somebody who made decisions. There was the leader of the tribe or the group or whatever name it went by. And we did that for thousands and thousands of years. And then at some point in time, we figured out how to domesticate livestock. We figured out how to make tools. We figured out how to build fences. We figured out how to plow the ground and cultivate the land and grow crops and what was needed to do those things. And we transitioned from primarily a wandering society to an agrarian society. We became farmers and ranchers, and we sort of put down roots. And all of our social services that supported that changed. We sent kids off to a little house on the prairie school, or a little school on the prairie. And we had the doctor in town who would get in his buggy and come out if you were sick or hurt. And we elected a mayor and city councilmen and governors and people to make, Congress and to help make decisions. But we changed our social structures to fit that model. And then in the late 1800s, around the turn of the 19th or 20th century, we transitioned again. Now, incidentally, we were an agrarian people for literally hundreds of years. Now, there were still wanderers, and today there are still farmers, but we transitioned from an agrarian people to an industrial society. And we built factories and assembly lines, and we focused on producing goods and services efficiently, as quickly as we could, get them in the door and out the door as fast as we could. And our social services changed. Where did we live? We didn't live out on the farm anymore. We all came to town, didn't we? We lived in the cities, where the factories were, where the jobs were. And we sent kids to work in those factories, but they kept getting hurt. And people said, that's not right. So we enacted child labor laws. But mom and dad were still working in the factory, so what are we going to do with the kids? Let's send them to school. So we sent them to school. And you got compulsory education. And you had to go, whether you wanted to be there or not, because we didn't have anything else to do. And then we created hospitals in those cities, didn't we? Where we could provide mass services. And of course, government got even more sophisticated and we became more bureaucratic. That's changed, and we've been an industrial people for literally tens of years. So I mean, for dozens of decades. What, 150 years? But we're changing again, aren't we? Do you see what's happened to time? George Herbert Mead called that telescoping of time. You ever look through the other end of a telescope? With a pair of binoculars? Everything looks way far away. Yeah, he said, well, when you look in time, we were wanderers for thousands and thousands of years. And then we became farmers for hundreds and hundreds of years. Then we became industrial people for tens and tens of years. But now we're transitioning to the information age, to the technology age. How long are we going to be here? And you see, we're transitioning so fast, I like to use this sort of metaphor. It's as if we're straddling a fault line, that we're straddling two tectonic plates. One's called the industrial age and one's the information age. And the information age is moving forward, but we're really comfortable on the industrial age. But we know we can't stay there, but we can't quite summon the courage to leap and go full force into the industrial age. When we get into the information age, as we get into the information age, we're starting to see our structures change again, aren't we? Look what's happening to education. Look what's happening to medicine. How many of you have ever been on WebMD? Bad place to go. Man, because you self-diagnose, don't you? It's like, oh gosh, I've got this. Oh, yeah, we all become hypochondriacs as soon as we start reading WebMD. The point is that we're in this period of immense, very rapid change, and as a people, we're not very well equipped to deal with it yet. And our social agencies that support us as a society, they're not ready to change either. So it's going to take leaders who have a really different view of the future. You got to have skills to work in very turbulent times. Dramatic change. The waters are churning. You got to have specialized skills to do that. You got to figure out how you're going to align strategies, processes, and people. And you don't have much time to think about this. We got to do this almost on the fly. And what we have to do is restore our sense of purpose, develop a culture that is dedicated to constructive results. That's what you want to do. I mean, I know you all want to help victims, don't you? I mean, that's why you're here. That's why you're engaged in whatever field you're going into. You have some relationship to victims rights, and victim services, but I'll tell you what, that's only the tip of the iceberg. We've got to change our society. We've got to change whatever it is that pushes people to do the kinds of things that they do. That's a bigger problem. And it's not, and you're not going to solve that, and I'm not going to solve it. But together we can make a difference. We may never completely eradicate sexual assault or domestic violence, but we can significantly reduce it. And that ought to be our aim. Ought to be what we're focusing on. In whatever our little corner of that piece is going to be, whether you're in criminal justice, law enforcement, social services, healthcare, whatever your corner is, it ought to be working toward that larger goal of trying to eliminate this particular condition from our society. Whatever that's going to take. All right, so I think you got to equip yourself with a new set of skills. And we heard a little bit about this in the YouTube clip. Here's what I think you're going to need to be successful. I think you need to adopt a servant leadership style of approach. What's happened is that our society has gotten so focused on the information ages that the leaders who knew it all, or thought they knew it all, or had access to the information, no longer do. Whatever information our leaders have, you and I have access to it as well. Therefore, the leader of tomorrow is going to have to be the person who can utilize all those resources and not just depend on one or two or a handful of people at the very top of the organizational chart who think they have access to the information and have the knowledge to do that. The best ideas come from where? If you watch TV, you know they come from garages. But if you think about that, they didn't come out. They came from everyday ordinary folks who came up with these earth-changing ideas. That's what we have to look for. We have to look for all those ideas that are in you, and you, and you. Because I don't have all the ideas. No one of us does. But collectively, we're going to come up with a lot better ideas. So an approach of servant leadership, and I'll talk about that a little bit here. I think we have to develop our skills in social and emotional intelligence. We'll come to that. And I'm going to encourage you to explore change from a different model than what you traditionally look at, using a process called appreciative inquiry. I don't know if you're familiar with this one or not.